Welcome in. It is great to have you with us. It is Big Ten today on a Monday. We are presented by Gatorade. We're heading down the stretch.
Things getting interesting now, Rever.
We got some drama. What a weekend.
Yeah, great. And this is what we all really wanted, right? Whether you're a fan of college football or you're a deep fan of your particular team, this is really what it's all about. And I'm so glad we had this 12-team playoffs. So many more people are really invested in what's going on each and every week.
I'm with you. I think that's the best part of it, is how many teams feel like they still have a shot as we head into the final few weeks of the regular season. Let's take you through the weekend that was. That is our big story and the big board telling that story. It started and ended in L.A. USC taking down Northwestern on Friday night at the Coliseum, while Nebraska topped UCLA Saturday evening at the Rose Bowl. In between, a blowout win for number 1 Ohio State, narrow victories for second-ranked Indiana and 9th-ranked Oregon. Wisconsin got its first conference W, knocking off Washington, while Rutgers moved within a game of bowl eligibility, topping Maryland. We got to start with the Hoosiers, though. Indiana had its back up against the wall in State College, down 4 points to Penn State, but Fernando Mendoza led a 10-play, 80-yard drive, capped off by one of the best catches you will ever see. Omar Cooper, acrobatic, back of the end zone. IU 10-0, its first ever win in 14 trips to State College. Howard, this is a story that just keeps getting better. Just when you think it can't get better, it gets better. What a drive for Indiana. I would say Fernando Mendoza probably didn't have his best game, frankly, but that's what makes it so remarkable, is that when the chips were down, Indiana figured out a way.
And, you know, it just wasn't Fernando not having his best game. I think as a team, they didn't play their best ball, and they were able, but I also think it was because of what Penn State was able to do.
Yes.
Back and forth. This is something we really have not seen out of an Indiana team, to be able to take the blows each and every time and then have an answer for them. There were so many opportunities that players may have made a mistake. You heard Cooper at the end of the game. Yeah, I made a mistake, had a drop earlier. There's some things I could have done better, but he came back to me. There's such a belief in these players, in one another, that it really takes it to the next level. And I think one of the interesting parts of this was at the end when Coach Sig was doing his interview with Jenny, and he just screamed right at the end when he was walking away, because the excitement that he hadn't had a chance to coach a game like this since he's been in Indiana. It was really remarkable what they were able to do.
They play so few close games. I mean, they generally just kind of blow people out. They obviously have had, they had the close game against Iowa, and I'd say the Oregon game reasonably close. They pulled away there in the fourth quarter. But, this game was different for Indiana. And I do think they made an uncharacteristic mistake, Mendoza throwing that interception that set Penn State up. And all of a sudden here you're thinking, man, this may be where it ends. We talk all week about Penn State, how much talent they have, that they were going to get someone somewhere along the way. It felt like it might be Indiana. You had no Elijah Surratt once again. I know IU fans are hoping that he gets back soon. But again, I think it speaks to kind of the fortitude that this team has, the belief in themselves. As you said, Cignetti got I don't know if he got choked up, but he got very slightly emotional, as you said, in that post-game reaction. I think just there's starting to be this realization of how special this is. I think even though that he focuses on each moment, on each play, he talks so much about that, about forgetting what's happened before, not worrying about what comes after, being in the moment. But it's got to be, there's just a human nature element to it, Howard, when you win a game like that, in an environment like that, to sit back and say, wow.
And I think that's what you saw toward the end, that last glimpse of him really just letting out that yell of excitement, that release, which was so important. And when you think about the game, there were so many times that Fernando was getting beat up. He was getting hit. He was throwing maybe some errant throws because of pressure. But on that last drive, you saw so much of that, just what this team is all about in that last drive, whether it's coming up with a big play at the end or setting that up. That's what's really been so phenomenal about this team is that they've had the injuries that you've mentioned, and guys have stepped up and made plays for them when they need it. Now, we don't get to see, obviously, practice each and every week, so we don't see these guys make the plays that they make in practice. But it is so important. I talk about this a lot when we talk about Ohio State, letting those young players get in there. But this is the same situation here in Indiana. You got players that have an opportunity to step up, and you come through in the clutch. That is so huge from the mental aspect of what this team is about to go through when you talk about the run, making this 12-team playoffs, probably winning, having an opportunity to play for the Big Ten championship, 12-team playoffs. You need players that have to step up, and we've seen it. The injuries that Indiana has had is not uncommon because this is a long season, a physical game. You have to have a deep roster, and they've shown us that.
And the one I think about is Charlie Becker in this game, who had 7 catches in his career coming in. He has 7 catches in this one, including the play that set up the game-winning touchdown, a beautiful grab.
Monster catches.
On the sidelines. That's some big catches for Becker. I don't want to leave this game without praising Penn State. You did a little bit there. I think it's worth saying. I thought Nicholas Singleton had far and away his best game of the year. Ethan Grunkemeyer, I think, showed us why he is a highly recruited quarterback against a very good defense. He played well. The Penn State defense, I mean, I realize they gave up the game-winning drive, but they had some really good moments against one of the most explosive offenses in the country. There's a lot to feel good about, particularly when you consider they don't have a whole lot to play for, given where their season started and what the expectations and hopes were, and now what the reality has become.
And you know just how, I'll call it toxic, that environment was going back several weeks. But to see the fans getting behind Penn State, the players, and what was happening in this game, and just being in the enthusiasm note you could see in the stadium, this is defense that really, I thought, played really well. And you talk about the last drive. They got after Indiana. They gave Indiana all that they could handle, and there were times that they were winning in those certain situations. But it had to come down to one of the greatest catches that we've seen, right, for Indiana to be able to win the game. Outstanding defense was played. Everything was there. It just didn't go their way. This is a team, to me, it really speaks volumes, not only about the coaching staff, but also, more importantly, the players that they have not packed it in at Penn State. And that's important because these seasons are long. The expectations were so high. They could easily say, you know what, let's pack it in. Let's think about next year or whatever you're going to move on to the next time. They go out there, but they've proven it each day that they're going to come out and work each and every week.
Held Indiana at 326 total yards, tied for the fewest the Hoosiers have had all year. We'll see whether or not they can win out and make themselves bowl eligible. They have Michigan State, Nebraska, and Rutgers. The Nittany Lions do the rest of the way. All right, let's move on, and let's show you the drama in Iowa City. Oregon was down a point at Kinnick, but Dante Moore led them on a 10-play, 54-yard drive against that outstanding Hawkeyes D. It set up Atticus Sappington for his 3rd field goal of the game, a 39-yarder. Gave Oregon its 11th straight road win. That is the longest streak in the nation. The Ducks are now 8-1. They win in a hostile environment, Howard, a place where a lot of people spent the whole week telling us they were going to lose. They did it without DeCorian Moore, without Kenyon Sadiq, 2 of their best weapons. Moore, obviously very talented wide receiver. Sadiq, one of the best tight ends in the country. Figured out a way against an excellent defense.
When you think about Oregon, it's really about the explosive plays that they're able to make in the run game. You talk about the pass game. You mentioned the injuries that they've had there. So when you're playing against Iowa, you can only take what they give you. You can't try to force the ball down the field and try to make these explosive plays because they're not going to give you that opportunity. So they had to win it a little bit differently. And going into a hostile environment, that's why I think it'll bode well for them in the coming tomorrow in the polls, that they'll get some credit for going on the road and winning this the way they did. Hopefully they can get their stars back in the lineup so they can start to have some more of those explosive plays. But this is a team that's gone on the road and to some tough places to play and found ways to pull it out.
It does seem like it's reasonably positive, at least with Moore, just according to what Dan Lanning said after the game. But I thought, to run the ball the way they did against Iowa. And this, to me, is the biggest difference between Oregon a year ago and Oregon this year. Oregon was not able to run the ball this successfully last year. They'd have a few games here and there. But I feel like this rushing attack, 261 rushing yards, Howard, against the number 7 run defense in the country. And we have seen this repeatedly, over 200 yards this year. It takes some of the pressure off that quarterback spot. They control the ball a little bit better, takes some pressure off the defense as well, which is phenomenal and has been really, really good all year. But that, to me, like if you're looking at where's Oregon different, to me they're different with the running game and the number of backs they can come at you with.
And that's an important part of it, because when things aren't going so well, and we talked about just the way this defense plays at Iowa, not wanting to give up the big play, if you can be confident in your line of scrimmage game, particularly offensively, that you're going to be able to run the ball and have some success, you talk about now you're getting into third down situations, and now that offensive playbook is wide open. But you have to be able to control the line of scrimmage. I'd also say this Oregon team, from a defensive line standpoint, I had some questions of whether they could get to the quarterback or play in the opponent's backfield for a couple of weeks, but they have proven that they can continue to do that. This is a really good offensive line that Iowa has, and to be able to get into the backfield and be disruptive and get to the quarterback and make them uncomfortable is a big part of what they're going to need as they go down the stretch as well.
What do you make of the Hawks? And this is another one of those games. Think of how close they've been to having a truly memorable season. They have 3 losses now by a total of 10 points, all of them against really good teams.
And this is what it comes down to, right? It comes down to ultimately being able to make those plays when you need them. And there weren't enough plays out there for Iowa. But this continues to prove why, when you think about Iowa football, you think about Kirk Ferentz and what they've been able to do under his tenure is so remarkable, because they just, they play their brand of ball, and it's not always pretty, but they come up. We know what they're going to get done on the defensive side. Offensively, they've been so much better in the last month that it has really been really good to see, and that's what keeps them in a lot of these games, is having that offense starting to score those points. But it's just one of those things. It's tough. It's hard to win football games. It really is, and it's great when you have the home field advantage like Iowa normally does when they're there, but you have to be able to execute, and you have to have those guys that can make some plays, and they just didn't have enough plays in this game.
Just haven't quite been able to get over the hump against these ranked teams this year. They got another one coming up this week. They had a huge game coming up this week at the Coliseum against USC, a game you can see here on the Big Ten Network, an enormous game, obviously, for the Trojans as well. But Iowa 0-3 against ranked teams this year. Okay, so there was drama for Indiana. There was drama for Oregon. There was no drama for Ohio State, although they did trail 3-0 early.
Oh, yeah, they're really slacking.
Against Purdue. And then they just absolutely dominated the game. Continue to throw the ball so well, and this defense, Purdue did score a touchdown late, but for all intents and purposes, after that field goal, they completely shut Purdue down.
Yeah, I truly believe in, listen, I know that the narrative that's out there about Ohio State not having a great run game. The reality is most people don't have a great run game, but I will tell you this, what they're able to do in the passing game, and the weapons that they're able, you're really, it's going to be tough for people to bring extra people into the box because of what they're doing on the outside, that they are just fine. I truly believe that this team is better than the team last year. That's always difficult to say when you win a national championship, but when you look at the way they're playing on the defensive side of the football, when you look at what's happening offensively, and they didn't have, their 1B receiver in this game, and they were still able to make plays. And again, we've talked about getting younger players or players that haven't gotten as much experience as they've gotten, as the starters have gotten. This is what Ohio State has been able to do. And I go back to this, and I keep talking about there is such a difference to me in the way Ryan Day approaches each and every game. There's just a calmness in him. Like, he understands what his team can do. Yes, when it's time for them to put their foot on the gas, I believe that they'll be able to do that. But there's just a calmness. And I understand that all the things that happened last year. but he just seems calm. The team seems calm. And when you look at the quarterback play, where is he up to 81% yet?
He's nearly 81%.
Okay. Yeah. And
he's knocking on the door of 81%.
And we're talking about it, and we still have questions and wondering. Listen, this team on the defensive side, what are they giving them? Just a little over 7 points, 7.2, 7.3?
A little over 7.
Yeah.
Yes, they've allowed 65 points in 9 games.
It's crazy to think about what they've been able to do. And when you think about the talent on this team, when you think about the way they're able to execute, they're getting it done. We're continuing to head for this collision course. Now, I know Michigan will have a lot to say about it.
They will.
But there's a collision course that we're on track to see, and it's going to be a fascinating game if they can get there.
It would be incredible if we end up with number 1 versus number 2 in Indy for all the Big Ten marbles. And then again, we've talked about, Julian Sand continues to put himself very much in this Heisman conversation. I know a lot of people are saying that last drive was Mendoza's Heisman moment, and it was incredible. And if he wins the Heisman, I think that's the drive people will look to. But again, I remind you that Heisman votes are not due until after championship weekend, and shame on anyone who has a Heisman vote who doesn't wait till after championship weekend. I know you and I both have votes. We wait until after the weekend every year. But it could come down to that game, not just for the Big Ten championship, not just for the number 1 seed in the college football playoff, but for the Heisman. Saban's been incredible. I will say, count me among those, Howard, who is a little concerned about the run game. I know you've talked about it. I don't want to necessarily beat it here, but I'm just saying 4 yards per carry against a team that was 15th in the Big Ten in rush defense coming in. They tried really hard to establish the run. They ran it more than 40 times in this game. There is a part of me that wishes they ran it a little bit better. I don't think it's.
That's the beauty of it. It's nothing wrong with that. And when we look at Ohio State, right, we've always thought we grade them a little different.
Yes.
We're a little harder.
Oh yeah, I mean they won the national championship last year. I'm judging them about whether they can win it again this year.
Exactly. Yes. And the reality is, I think that when the moment comes, I'm not saying that all of a sudden they're going to start averaging 7 yards a carry. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying they're going to run it good enough and well enough that it's not going to cause them problems offensively. I think they're good enough there that they can make things happen. When you take care of the football, when you take care of it, and you're not turning it over, and you don't have a lot of penalties, you're not putting yourself in bad spots, things start to set up for you. And listen, they still have to do it. Listen, there are games that are out there. We already know that. But just to this point, the way they are playing the game, I don't know that we've seen it like that. And I know that we talk about the great wide receivers that they have. And it's, to me, a little bit of a shame that he's knocked down because of the weapons that he has. Now, we don't normally say that about some other quarterbacks, but because he's a first-time starter, because this is his first real opportunity to lead this program, we're looking at all the other reasons why this is happening. Because he has great wide receivers and great this, great that. The young man has really proven that he has a grasp for this offense. His teammates trust him and his coaches trust him, and they have put him in a great situation. Oh, by the way, Brian Hartline, let's talk about his growth as a play caller. And he's not, I don't think, getting the credit that he probably deserves because of Ryan Day. We know it's Ryan Day's deal, but
yes,
Brian Hartline has really grown. He's always been a great recruiter. Now he's getting into that area where he is a difference maker as a play caller for this offense, and it's really going well for him.
Incredible developer of talent, as you say, too. And you pointed it out. I mean, they were without Carnell Tate in this game for mysterious reasons that weren't really clarified necessarily.
Well, right, they'll have an opportunity to do that sometime this week.
Post-game comments, I think, at UCLA and Rutgers before that game against Michigan on Thanksgiving weekend. Wisconsin got its first conference win on Saturday. The Badgers, down to their fourth-string quarterback, rode a fabulous defensive effort to a 13-10 win over number 23 Washington. The victory ended the Badgers' 10-game conference losing streak, their longest this century. Also halted an 11-game skid against ranked teams. I can't say enough about the resilience of this team, Howard. You think about all the issues. I mean, just to put their offense into perspective in this game, their longest play from scrimmage was a fake punt. Their leading passer was their punter who completed that 24-yard pass on the fake punt. They had just over 200 yards of offense. I mean, this is not how they drew it up. They have had the worst luck this year of any team I can remember in the time that we've been covering the Big Ten, and yet figured out a way. And the way they did it was with young players, true freshmen, leading the way, which bodes really well for the future.
It really does, and it also, shows you that, when you're working hard in practice, and that can carry over to the game, and you start to make a lot of plays, and that's what you've seen happen. You start thinking about what they were able to do defensively, and listen, Washington had some injuries, some guys went down early, and really didn't get back to what they were doing, but they really couldn't get going, and I think a big byproduct of that was the way they were playing defensively. They were getting after them. They were coming downhill as a defense. And that's the way you have to play when you're playing Washington and you're playing against Williams. You have to put him in a box and try to keep him there and keep him uncomfortable. And that's what they were able to do. There were some fabulous plays. The linebackers, I thought, played at a really high level for the Badgers in this one, and they needed them.
Yeah, and you pointed out Mason Poso was your Saturday standout. He was incredible. Cooper Catalano was great, too. Again, those are both true freshmen. Carter Smith gets thrown into the fire here at quarterback. I mean, they completed 6 passes the entire game. So Washington pretty much knew what was coming.
Yes.
I mean, it was going to be a lot of tailback run and a lot of quarterback run. But again, I think, to me, the story is exactly what you were talking about. It's the defense. Yeah. It's the way they held down this explosive Washington attack. It is fair to point out, Jonah Coleman basically didn't play. Denzel Boston was hobbled in this game. So that's part of it. But Wisconsin was the aggressor. I mean, that was the big thing that stood out to me. Like, even the final play where Damon Williams got tackled by Posa, like, Wisconsin is coming at them. They took the fight to Washington, which is not easy to do when you're playing with a bunch of guys who just don't have the experience of having been out there.
Yeah, and sometimes the inexperience.
Maybe the naivete helps you.
Yeah, it was a good thing, and you could hear it really in the interviews afterwards. Talking about they need to have some grit, right? And so when you start to hear people, young players, talk about grit, that's coming from the front of the room. But I'd go back and you start to think about the game plans. What has caused Washington issues? When you think about Ohio State, downhill. You think about Michigan, downhill. So if I'm a defense, I'm going to play downhill. I want to get after and I want to attack the quarterback and force him to try to see things he's not seeing and keep him moving around. And that's what they did an unbelievable job of doing it. And I thought the quarterback run game for them helped as well when you think about the Badgers. And maybe that's where they need to be. And I know they've been trying to get there, but the injuries, we really haven't had an opportunity to see a lot of it. But it was good to see Coach Tressel and that defense really take it to the next level against a really, really quality opponent. So much so, I thought this was a team that had a shot to make that 12-team playoffs coming down the stretch because of how explosive they were offensively and how much better they had gotten defensively.
Well, Wisconsin held them 188 yards under their season average. It's kind of all or nothing with Washington. I mean, their wins, they average 45 points. Losses, they average about 8 points per game. And to your point, really damaging. It was hard to imagine a scenario now where Washington makes it to the CFP. It was going to, we felt like, maybe come down to that game.
They had a game,
against Oregon.
Yes.
Now you pick up the pieces, you figure it out. You hope that you can get healthy here. There's still a ton to play for. You could end up with 9 wins. They're a much improved team over last year, but disappointing for Washington to play like that in a game that they desperately needed.
Yeah, so much riding on it. But I'd also say this, you never know. We watched Ohio State do some things, and obviously didn't have 3 losses, but we watched them go through some things as well and still find a way to get to their goal, have an opportunity to play for it. But we'll have to see.
1-7 in conference road games now under Jed Fish. They come home to take on Purdue. They got UCLA and Oregon after that. So Washington probably out of the playoff picture. USC stays in the playoff picture. A dominant second half against Northwestern. Northwestern's got a pretty good defense. They had no answers at all for Southern Cal's wide receivers, particularly Mekhi Lemon, who I just thought was fabulous.
Yeah, and the reality is not many people are going to have an answer for him when he's on, and they can find a way to get him the football. But you're talking about an offense. You know, they're throwing for 300, rushing for 200, doing, you know, unbelievable job. But you think about this game, and I thought the game changed.
One play. Yeah.
And obviously, you don't know what's going to take place afterwards. But when you have a game-changing play like that, and it doesn't happen, and we just see the job that they were able to do offensively, but you got to be able to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
And just and I get it. You're trying to reach, and how about the play?
Yeah, Mayava, unbelievable play. For those who didn't watch the game, just to clarify, it was 14-14.
Yes.
Northwestern intercepts a pass. Najee Story. He is running for the goal line.
He's there.
Mayava does not give up on the play, hits him. Story fumbles the football. He fumbles it through the end zone, which I still think is the craziest rule in all sports. But we're not here to legislate that rule. And it ends up being a touchback in USC's ball. So Northwestern's 1 yard away from going ahead. And then USC scored in, I think, 3 plays subsequent to that.
And I'll tell you this. Throughout college football right now, teams are showing that play.
Yeah.
Because so often you will see a quarterback throw an interception, and nowadays they don't want the quarterback running after him and hustling down there, at least not running as hard as he should be to try to stop him. But he ran as hard as he could, came up with a huge play. And listen, they may have still won the game, but things change. You talk about putting the effort in. That's a play that if they continue to put things together this season, they're going to point to that play and say, this is how you play the game. This is what we want out of our players, the grit and the toughness to be able to do that when you make a mistake.
Yeah, they are so dynamic. And I was, again, that play goes differently. It's 21-14 Northwestern, final minutes of the first half, and maybe we end up with a different game. But give USC credit, incredibly resilient. They made unbelievable plays throughout this game. They had a very controversial play as well, a fake punt where they put the backup quarterback, Sam Heward. Yeah. He had the same number as the punter. It was on the pregame roster, was not on the roster throughout the week. And then the Big Ten, interestingly, issued a statement or a response to inquiries yesterday about this and essentially said that it violated what it called the unfair tactics rule in the playbook, which essentially says that you can't have two different players line up at the same position wearing the same number. And so the penalty actually would not have been on the fake punt. It would have been on the subsequent punts for an unsportsmanlike conduct when USC then brought in the punter wearing the same number. They did say that they're going to continue to discuss this with both schools. I'm not sure what to say about it other than it's a loophole. Because if you think about it, like if it's the first punt of the game, which it was, even if you know the rule, which you're expected to know the rule.
Yes, you are.
As a coach. Even if you know the rule, you say, well, okay, like we'll take the 15 yards later in the game for unsportsmanlike if they catch it, and let's execute this fake punt. And by the way, Sam Heward, you can see why he was a highly recruited quarterback.
Absolutely.
That was quite a throw.
Well, I'll tell you this. I think that, listen, inside of the rules, your people are pushing the envelope, right? You're always pushing, right? And obviously this will legislate some change or some more change, so things are very clear now, so that loophole isn't there. But this is where we are. I mean, this is where we are in this game.
It is unrealistic, I think. I mean, I guess you can use AI or something, but it's unrealistic to say we gave you a roster, numerical roster, the day of the game, and then you got to go through and see every number where there was change. I mean, it's just silly, right? Like,
it is.
There needs to be more transparency through that.
Or they've just created a new position.
Yeah, exactly. The roster checker, official roster checker.
In the NFL.
And then to give David Braun credit, he said, hey, they gave us the roster. I guess we now need to go through everyone. What do you, again, Northwestern, I think you look at it, they lost by 21 points, and you say, it wasn't a close game. But to your point, I mean, they could have taken the lead at the end of the first half. They ran the ball pretty well. Their defense just, again, had no answer for the star power of USC's wide receivers. Yeah.
It is understandable when you think about what they're going up against and where they need to deploy their defensive players to try to slow them down. They're going to have some holes in it. But David Braun and his coaching staff, to me, they figured it out. They know what they're doing. The challenge is you just don't have the players that SC had. So everything has to go right for you to be able to come up with a win. But these young people are playing hard. I think the coaches are doing an outstanding job of getting them prepared to make the plays. Again, we talk about when they don't turn the football over, this team is hard to beat. And they do a really good job of knowing who they are and playing to their strengths.
And they're without David Walters, who's probably their best player in the secondary. He is really good. He was out with an injury. They were down 2 tailbacks as well and still ran the ball really well in the first half. Komalafe is a good back, and the
really
offensive
good
line is vastly improved. They still need one win. They got Michigan, Minnesota, Illinois. We'll see if they can get that win and get themselves into a bowl game. The teams at the top of the college football playoff rankings survived the weekend largely unscathed. Ohio State and Indiana joined by Texas A&M as the lone remaining unbeatens. The Aggies won at Mizzou. BYU falling from the ranks of the undefeated. They lost in Lubbock. The ACC is a mess. Virginia and Louisville both losing there. Memphis, which remember was the team from outside of the power conferences that would have been in the initial college football playoff bracket. They lost to Tulane on Friday night. The American has so many teams that are in that hunt for the last spot. I mean, that's going to be a fascinating race down the stretch. Kind of feels like that's the conference where that team will come from. But let's focus in on the Big Ten and the playoff hopefuls. I think realistically, the Big Ten's at 5 playoff hopefuls right now. Again, you never know what could happen, and somehow maybe one of those 3-loss teams, if there's just mass carnage, works its way back in or wins in such an overwhelming fashion that people say, hey, we have to take a second look at that team. But realistically, it's probably the 5 teams. So let's go through them. Let's show you the road ahead for each of these teams and get some thoughts on where this is headed. A big picture, Ohio State still in great shape. We talked about what's left for them. They have UCLA and Rutgers at home, and then that huge game against Michigan. I expressed my slight concern over the run game. You told me not to be that concerned about it. What else hits you about Ohio State as they look to defend their national championship?
Well, if you want to nitpick, right, they've got 2 games that they should win and win handily, right? So what is the maturity of this team, the leadership of this team? I know what it is. I know that they're going to show up prepared and get ready to rock and roll and do what they've been doing each and every week. But the question still remains, they have to play at their level. They have to set the tempo in those games and can't be looking too far ahead, because the reality is friends, family, media, everyone's pointing to that game.
We're looking ahead. I'm looking ahead. My mind instantly goes to that game.
Right now.
Yes.
Exactly. And they can't do that. They've been healthy. They've been, taking care of their business. But they need to handle the mental aspect. They need to continue to have their younger players or less experienced players continue to contribute. And I think we're going to see that continue in the next 2 games.
All right, in the meantime, I'm going to talk about it for the next couple weeks. Pretty much.
Might as well,
ad nauseum and nonstop, because I'm fascinated to see how they come out, how they play in that game against Michigan in Ann Arbor on the last Saturday of the regular season. We mentioned it earlier. If everyone does what they are expected to do, Ohio State and Indiana seem to be on a collision course for the Big Ten championship game. It really feels like it would take something monumental at this point for the Hoosiers not to make it. They have Wisconsin at home this week, then they get a bye week, then they go to Purdue. They're going to overwhelming favorites on paper in both of those games. You talk about maturity, kind of how Indiana handles this down the stretch.
We've seen them handle this already. They've already done it. We've seen them in tough, close games, tight games, be able to overcome mistakes that they may make. So really a lot of the questions that we had about Indiana have really continued to have been addressed to this point. Now, how can they get healthy? Can they get their guys back
right.
and ready to go? To me, that's going to be the most important. But they have their younger players are stepping up and making plays for them. And defensively, again, we never really talk about the defense and what they're over there and what they're doing, right? And they're playing at an unbelievable level, leading the country in a lot of categories.
It'll be interesting to see how Cignetti kind of pushes those buttons this week. They've never been 11-0, never started 11-0 in school history. So it feels like to me that's a way to get this group motivated again.
There's still so much out there, right?
Do something that you have never done. It's a little trickier for Oregon. Once you get past Ohio State and Indiana, it's a little trickier for everyone. You look at Oregon, they have one loss to the Hoosiers. They have the quick turnaround at home Friday night facing a Minnesota team that's coming off a bye. And then two tough ones to finish, USC at home, and then they go to Washington for a big rivalry game. Now, presumably you can lose one game and still find your way in. I think you don't want to mess around with it, particularly given how the committee treated them this week. Although, again, I shudder to try to figure out the logic of the committee, but it seems like it was a metric based on kind of who they played, who they beat. Northwestern's the only team over 500 that they had beaten going into the rankings last week. Obviously, they'll look at that Iowa game, I think, favorably.
Yes.
But then those games that they have down the stretch, I mean, if you win all those games, those are all teams that are over 500 that are good teams.
Absolutely. And whether the schedule is front-loaded or back-loaded or somewhere in the middle, you still have to go out and play your games, right? The schedule's been set. The opportunities are out there, but you also know you can't afford to stumble. So we talked about them being as healthy as they can be. They're going to need that coming down the stretch because when you look at SC, I mean, that's not going to be a pushover. And quite frankly, you look at what Minnesota can get done as well. Yes. That's never going to be an easy game. So their road is really difficult, and they need to take care of their business.
Yeah. Very interesting game, as you said, Friday night against the Gophers. We'll see whether Minnesota can play well going into that hostile environment there in Eugene. How about USC? They get Iowa at home on Saturday. That is a game, again, that you can see here on the Big Ten Network. Then they go to Eugene, and they finish up at home against UCLA. There is nothing easy about this schedule, and they probably don't have margin for error.
No.
Again, you don't know. Like, hey, if they beat Iowa and Oregon and then somehow stumble against UCLA, they'd have some really good wins on that schedule. But I think realistically, if you're going to try to make it in, if you're USC, you've got to win all of these games. That includes going to Autzen Stadium and beating the Ducks, and it includes beating Iowa this week. A really good defense going up against their outstanding offense.
A defense that really doesn't want to give up big plays, and we watched what happened a week ago. They're going to try to keep everything in front of them. So can they get that running game going for SC to go against this Iowa defense? Because they'll have some problems in this game, and they'll have to be able to take what the defense gives them. But this is going to be a really fascinating matchup when you think about what's still out there for SC. There's still obviously a lot of meat on the bones that they can really point to and say, this is where we have an opportunity to make that push. And everyone's in striking distance, these teams that we're discussing now, to be there. But there's a lot of work that each of those three teams have to continue to do each week.
And again, that's going to be huge. Number 7 scoring offense in the nation in USC against number 4 scoring defense in Iowa. So you get strength against strength. And then when they go to Eugene, they're 1-6 against ranked teams on the road under Lincoln Riley. So we'll see. But again, first things first, they got to take down the Hawkeyes. Okay, Michigan. They get Northwestern at Wrigley Field on Saturday. Then they go to Maryland. And then, of course, as we've talked about, they finish with Ohio State. Remember the game's in Ann Arbor. Wolverines looking for their 5th straight win against their arch rivals. Howard, this feels really straightforward to me. You need to get to that game, obviously, at 9-2. On paper, it feels like you should be able to do that against Northwestern and Maryland. And then can you do what you have done? Can you continue to be that thorn in the side for Ohio State, a game in which you clearly, at this point, have the mental edge?
It's like, we're playing Ohio State. So what? This is what we've done this before. But I think for them specifically, I think I want to dive into this Michigan team just a little bit here because I think this is where things can really get good for them. They're coming off this bye. I thought it was going to be important for them in this bye really to really hone in the passing game. And the passing game isn't always about the quarterbacks. It's the receivers, it's protection, it's everything. But to me, this Michigan team, if they can get their passing game going, get it really dialed in with the expectations that we thought for this team earlier in the season and during the offseason, they're going to be a problem. Because when Underwood uses his legs, he's as good a quarterback as out there. But it's the passing game that I really want to see if he can take that jump. And that'll be a big part of whether that they can pull out that game at the end, how he continues to grow as that passer.
We've really seen Andrew Marsh start to emerge as a weapon for them.
Marshall.
Yes, he's outstanding at running back. I think this bye couldn't have come at a better time because they didn't play great against Purdue. And so I got a week, as you say, dissect it, figure it out, and then play well here in these two games leading up to the game. It is time to go around the Big Ten. The Washington women's soccer team taking home the conference tourney title yesterday, topping Michigan State in a match that came down to penalty kicks after finishing in a 1-1 draw. The Huskies, who also won the regular season championship, battled through an emotional weekend after the passing of goalkeeper Mia Hammond following a courageous battle with kidney cancer. Sydney Supley spoke with the Huskies after the match.
Tanner, let me be the first to congratulate you. I saw you hoist up the trophy. You said this one is for Mia. Describe what this moment is like for your team.
Yeah, it's really emotional. Obviously, finding out about it just a couple days ago. Everything we do is just for her, and the fact that we were able to come through and make some big saves and get some amazing goals and really come away with this one means a lot to us, and we're just doing it all for her.
Oh, I don't know if I quite have the words right now, but I think we did just continually show up and give their best. And we said at halftime we needed to buy into not having the ball, and when we got it, just do great things with it. And I think we weathered a lot of storms. At Michigan State is unbelievable. I think to win it in PKs is just an unbelievable moment for this team. I think just obviously it's been a hard week, but just shows how much this team loves each other, how much they care about each other, and how much we love Mia.
Yeah, I think it meant a lot that we were underdogs at the beginning of the season. We just knew that we were coming out here to prove everyone wrong and show what we were capable of, and I think that's exactly what we did. Got the conference championship, then we set our eyes straight here, and now our eyes are set on the NCAA. We're coming to win it all.
On the men's side, Maryland will be the host and the #1 seed in the 4-team Big Ten tourney, which starts Wednesday after the #1 ranked and undefeated Terps finished off the regular season title this weekend, taking down Michigan State. #2 seed Washington will battle 3 seed Michigan in the first semi at 4 Eastern, followed by the Terps and 4th seeded UCLA. Championship matches Sunday, both the semis and the title game here on the Big Ten Network. Northwestern field hockey capturing the Big Ten tourney yesterday, taking down Iowa 3-0. It was the 3rd ever tourney championship for the defending national champion Cats, who also won the regular season title. Tracy Fuchs' team 18-1 on the year, undefeated against Big Ten opponents. And despite being ranked 2nd in the nation in the coaches poll, they did not get a top 4 seed in the NCAA tourney. They'll play against Yale on Friday in Charlottesville, where they'd win that, they would likely face host Virginia for a spot in the Final Four. Cats have won 2 of the last 4 national titles played in the national championship game each of the last 4 seasons. Big Ten runner-up Iowa joins Northwestern in the NCAA tourney. The Hawkeyes also play Friday. They will take on Duke at 2:30 Eastern. Iowa's 29th appearance in the NCAA tournament, most of any school as a member of the Big Ten.